What is going on, Twins fans? And welcome back to another episode of Twins Latest. I'm Sam Calder. Hope you are all doing well. We are just 2 days away from the start of actual baseball games being played, so be sure you are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any daily Twins updates. We have a lot to talk about today, and I wish I could say it's all good news, but we have to start the episode off with a very, very unfortunate development. Yesterday, as I'm recording this a couple days ago by now when you're listening, Pablo Lopez ended his live batting practice session due to elbow soreness. And my first reaction to this was, that's fine. This is just general soreness. He'll be good to go in a few days. Just give him some rest. Well, I'm afraid the news on this might be as bad as it possibly could be. According to Aaron Gleeman, Lopez tore a ligament in his elbow, and as general manager Jeremy Zoll put it, surgery is, quote, very much on the table. I mean, this is just brutal. There's no other way to put it. The ligament that he tore is his UCL, meaning he'll need to get Tommy John surgery. And even if he were to get Tommy John done tomorrow, he would still be out the entirety of the 2026 season and most likely part of 2027. I don't want to be the one to whine and complain about injury luck because injuries happen to every team in some form or fashion over the course of a season. It simply cannot be a coincidence, though, that the Twins have this many injuries every single year. I mean, Byron Buxton, Royce Lewis, Luke Keyshaw, Matt Wallner, even Joe Ryan have routinely struggled with injuries since they got to Minnesota. That simply cannot just be bad luck. Now we've seen Pablo Lopez miss the majority of last season, and now this. I mean, I'm just going to put it bluntly. This is possibly the worst thing that could have happened for the Twins at this point in the season. Losing your ace for the year, presumably in mid-February, is awful for multiple reasons. Not only do you not have your ace for the entirety of the season, but how does that impact the rest of the team? I mean, imagine being part of a team that's already got low expectations, and then your best pitcher gets hurt the first day everyone's back. That would be incredibly devastating. So I apologize for being so negative. I really do want to try and remain optimistic about this team. And I really do, and to some extent still do, feel like this team will be better than people expect. But it is so hard to remain positive when our best players consistently, year over year, are getting hurt and missing chunks of time. So forgive me for the rant, but I needed to get that out of my system. As far as some other names who will benefit from this, everyone will move up a spot on the depth chart since Lopez was the number one. But the key names who will benefit the most are the guys who are fighting for a back-of-the-rotation spot. Zebby Matthews, Simeon Woods-Richardson, Taj Bradley, David Festa. I think the odds of the Twins rolling out a six-man rotation are larger as a result of this because this will create room for all four of those names I mentioned, as well as, of course, Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober. And I think with the amount of bullpen signings the Twins have made in the past couple of weeks, they'll have plenty of bullpen options available for late in games. I think this also benefits guys like Connor Prelip and Mick Abel, who will now have more opportunities to earn a spot in the rotation over spring training and the course of the season. Luckily, there's a lot of depth in the starting rotation. I've been talking about that all offseason. But man, this sucks. This really, really sucks. There's really not any other way to put it. This is horrible news for the Twins. And I mean, before games even started, this is just a really, really disappointing start to the season, man. But let's pivot from the tough news and get into today's prospect deep dive. We haven't talked about this guy at all, really, over the last month or so. It is corner infielder Billy Amick. Amick was the Twins' second-round pick in the 2024 MLB draft out of the University of Tennessee. He is the Twins' number 16 prospect on MLB Pipeline and number 49 on Fangraphs. I think it's pretty safe to say he's much closer to that 16th ranking. Not entirely sure what he's doing at number 49. In general, I mean, guys who are drafted out of college generally get bumped down a little bit, but that's very much extreme. I'm not sure if that's just a formality on Fangraphs, but he should not be 49. Amick missed a good chunk of last season with a couple of injuries, but he was fantastic when he was on the field. Across 54 games at high single A, he hit .310 with a .418 on-base percentage and 20 extra base hits. And while that's all great, I do think it's worth noting some of the underlying data. He had a 25.8% strikeout rate, which for a 22-year-old at high single A, you would really like to see that number be about 5 to 10% lower. He also had a .426 BABIP, which is nearly impossible to repeat. I mean, a 326 BABIP would be hard to repeat, let alone 100 points higher. So despite his strong on-base skills, I do not expect him to replicate that level of production again in 2026. I think it's unclear what the power production specifically will look like. Some people thought his power was the best part of his game, especially coming out of Tennessee. He hit 23 home runs in his junior season there, with 15 other extra base hits on top of it. But he hit just 4 homers all of last season. So there's some uncertainty around what kind of hitter he projects to be long term. Because if he's able to get some extra pop in his bat and develop a sense of power, he has the upside to be, a 275-ish hitter with 20 home runs. He doesn't hit a lot of fly balls either. He had just a 35.6% fly ball rate in 2025. If he can change his launch angle and generate more fly balls, I think it'll help his power output. It will definitely eat into some of the batting average. But I mean, when you're hitting 310, you can afford to lose some of that for some extra power, at least in my opinion. He had a very high 28% line drive rate. One would think that will come down in 2026, which would likely add some extra home runs to his stat line as well. Looking at Amick's defensive numbers, I'm going to guess he makes the permanent move to first base at some point in the next couple of years. He had 5 errors on 50 chances at third base last year, which is just not going to work at the higher levels of the minors and especially in the majors. He was much better defensively at first base, so I think that's probably where he'll wind up long term. He doesn't have to be anything, spectacular defensively, and I don't think he projects to be. So first base would be a really good spot for him where you can hide a weaker defender. He's not going to be anything in the speed department either. He's only attempted 3 stolen bases over the course of his minor league career. He's gotten thrown out on 2 of them. So 2026 will be very important for Billy Amick. He hits the ball hard enough to be a big contributor in batting average. And if he hits more fly balls, the batting average, like I said, will drop a bit, but the power output will be much higher. He also could struggle with strikeouts even more this year when he presumably makes the jump to Double-A. I think that's where he'll start the season, since he hit 310 there at high A last year. But we need to see the strikeouts come down and some better defense before he's ready to really make an impact at the higher levels of the minors and with the Twins in the majors. But shifting gears from Billy Amick, I have not done a bold prediction in a little while, so I think it's time I do one today. The other couple bold predictions I've made have both been on the positive side. So to even the playing field a little bit, this one's going to be on the negative side, and this one's a little bit timely. My bold prediction today is that the Twins will not have a single pitcher eclipse 175 innings this season. And that may not sound that bold because no Twins pitcher hit that mark last year, but Pablo Lopez and Bailey Ober both did in 2024. Lopez and Sonny Gray both did in 2023. You would like to see your top pitchers get to that number. And I should also say, I am not just saying this because of the Pablo Lopez news we've gotten. I thought this was going to happen even when he was healthy. I am under the impression that the Twins will be using a 6-man rotation for a good portion of the season. I don't think they will for a full 162 games, but I think they have a lot of guys who can make an impact, and they'll want to give those guys chances. At this point, I see all of Zebby Matthews, Taj Bradley, Simeon Woods-Richardson, and David Festa cracking the rotation after Pablo Lopez is gone. Connor Prelip and Mick Abel could jump up and grab one of those spots as well. But let's look at it from a numbers perspective. If your starting pitchers are making a start every 6th game instead of every 5th game, there's just simply not as much room for innings. I mean, we're talking about a handful of fewer starts per pitcher as a result of a possible 6-man rotation. That would naturally get rid of 20 to 30 innings per pitcher. Additionally, Derek Shelton is very similar to former Twins manager Rocco Baldelli in the sense that he doesn't usually let his pitchers go longer than 6 innings. So let's assume that each starter in the rotation loses out on 4 starts because of his 6-man rotation. That would be about 28 to 29 starts per pitcher, assuming they all stay healthy for a full season, which they won't. If you threw 6 innings in every single one of those 28 starts, that's still not even 170 innings. Now, that could be different if it's a standard 5-man rotation and everyone makes 32 starts, but I don't think Derek Shelton is going to opt to do that for the full year. Bailey Ober is the only pitcher in the current rotation that has ever eclipsed 175 innings in a season, and he got hurt the year after he did that. And you also have to factor in that guys like Connor Prelip, Mick Abel, Andrew Morris, Kendry Rojas, etc., the guys who will likely start at AAA, could all possibly get action in the majors at some point this year. So I think between the depth aspect and a possible six-man rotation, it's not likely we see any Twins pitcher be a true workhorse, who pushes 190 to 200 innings. Pablo Lopez was the most likely guy to get there. He obviously won't be doing that anymore. Joe Ryan could come close if he stays healthy. But in general, I don't think we will see any Twins pitcher eclipse the 175 inning mark at some point in 2026. And then, as we always do, we will wrap up the episode with our Twins player preview. We're going back to the bullpen today, and we are looking at Kody Funderburk. Funderburk has been part of the Twins bullpen for a few years now, but 2026, I think, figures to be his largest workload in the majors. He's thrown 87 and 2/3 innings with the Twins since 2023. He's sporting a 4.31 ERA and 91 strikeouts to 38 walks in that span. Just looking at last season, he had a 3.51 ERA over 41 innings and 40 strikeouts to 18 walks. For a while, it was looking like he would have a really, really crucial role as the only lefty in the bullpen, but the Twins have since added Taylor Rogers, Anthony Banda, and Andrew Chafin, so he won't be needed as much. Looking at his arsenal, he's got a 5-pitch mix with a sinker, a cutter, a sweeper, a changeup, and a slider. And it's kind of funny. His cutter is his worst pitch from a movement profile, but he also locates it better than any of his other pitches. But it's the opposite with every other pitch. His sinker, sweeper, changeup, and slider all have stuff plus grades above league average, but he's really struggled with command on all those other pitches, which is why he had 18 walks in those 41 innings last year. I'd like to see him throw his changeup more in 2026. It gets a ton of movement, and it had the highest run value of any pitch he threw last season. He only threw it 12% of the time, so I would really like to see that number jump to 15 to 20% in 2026. Looking at the advanced metrics for Funderburk, he didn't throw enough innings to qualify for most of them, but they indicate he likely overperformed and got a bit lucky last season. He got very few swings and misses. He was comfortably below average in giving up hard contact. He did get a lot of ground balls, but that's really the only thing he truly did well. Although I should note, for what it's worth, his expected ERA was only 3.66, and his FIP was down at 3.35. But with his profile and with what the advanced metrics say, I don't think you should expect him to replicate that again in 2026. He was actually pretty shaky against lefties last year, even as a left-handed pitcher. 13 of his 18 walks came against lefties, and he faced far fewer lefties over the course of the year. He was not great against righties either. He had a 295 batting average allowed against right-handed hitters last season. If I could choose one thing for him to clean up, it would be his command against the lefties, because I would think that's more likely what he's going to be relied upon is facing more lefties than righties. But what do I know? All in all, I like Kody Funderburk, and I think he will have an important role out of the bullpen, but I think he profiles more as a mid-inning reliever than a late-inning reliever, someone you throw out there in the 5th or 6th, after you pull the starter. And I think his pitch mix profiles well for that role since he doesn't have a true four-seam fastball. So I expect him to be a meaningful contributor out of the bullpen this year for the Twins, regardless of what that role actually looks like in terms of a innings perspective. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Twins Latest. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed it, please do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel. If you've got a Twins-related topic or topics that you want me to talk about in a future episode, please let me know down below in the comments. But until next time, I'm Sam Calder, and this has been Twins Latest. I'm out.